know what, being a parent is the most rewarding and the most exhausting thing that you will ever do. But a lot of times we have expectations on ourselves and on our kids that make it harder than it needs to be.
Oh, say that again. That is so true. Leslie Leyland Fields, author of Parenting is Your Highest Calling and 8 Other Myths That Trap Us in Worry and Guilt. She has 6 children of her own, so I think she has a pretty good idea what to do here. So please welcome Leslie Fields.
Leslie, great to have you with us today. What made you decide to kind of hone in on myths that people believe that affect how they parent?
You know, here's the true story. I went to bed every night for the first 15 years as a parent. I went to bed every night feeling like a failure. You know, I hadn't done enough for my kids. I hadn't loved them enough. I got angry at them this time. You know, I mean, just, you rehearse all these things at night. And I felt like such a failure. And I realized, wait a minute. I knew there was something wrong. And so I began to look at myself and look at what some of my beliefs and expectations and assumptions were about parenting. In that book, those 9 myths, I used to believe every one of those myths.
Really? Well, let's start with you know, you kind of pick out the top 5. Having children brings happiness and fulfillment.
And a soundtrack.
Yeah, and first of all, I want to say, you know, people get very nervous when I start talking about parenting this way because they start thinking, maybe she doesn't really love her children, or maybe she doesn't love being a mother, and I do. I love my children, all 6 of them, who go from 20 down to 6. So we've got 3rd year in college down to kindergarten.
Wow.
1 girl and 5 boys.
You've covered the gamut.
And yes, we've got the whole thing going on. And you know, our children do bring us great moments of happiness and fulfillment. They really do. They do. But our lives with our children, our moment by moment, day by day lives are not necessarily characterized by happiness and fulfillment. You have children.
Yeah, I was not too happy this morning with one of my children.
Oh, okay.
I love her.
So true.
But not happy with, you know, how the tone set the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is, it comes as a great shock to a lot of parents when they sort of hit a wall and they realize, I'm not feeling fulfilled as a
parent. They're not supposed to be a parent.
Right.
Yeah.
And women in particular, I think, get this message that children will complete you, that children will bring you happiness and fulfillment.
And they do, though.
And they do.
And they do, but there's a big but. You know, we all, every one of us, women, men, husbands, wives, mothers and fathers, we all have all kinds of needs. We have deep needs, a need for identity, the need for significance, the need for purpose. And when we think that we're going to find that those deepest needs are going to be met through our children,
puts a lot of expectation on the children.
It's bad for us and it's bad for them.
Yeah.
Because that's an enormous burden that they have to carry, and you know, they can't carry it. It is not fair.
Yeah.
It is not fair to our children to carry that load, that they have to make us happy. They have to fulfill us.
No, because it's not a product of them. They're not producing that in us. The experience could be happy and it can be fulfilling, but if you get it from them, then you're sucking your life out of your children, then, aren't you?
Yes, you can be. And we've all heard so much about overparenting.
Yeah.
And this is there was just an article in the New York Times recently, just a week or 2 ago. I mean, this is a major phenomenon going on where parents are you know, surrounding their children and protecting them, wanting to protect them. That's very good. That's, you know, that's what we're supposed to do as parents. But they're so involved in every aspect of their children's lives, even as they grow and become teenagers and go to college. And the parents are trying to find, again, they're putting all of their need for happiness and fulfillment, they're trying to derive that from their children.
Do you think that's why we have the empty nest syndrome that we do?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
when kids go, you've got, you know, children going off to college, and I'm going through that a little bit with my oldest going off to college next year. I'm like,
no, she's not.
What am I going to do when she's not around? Because I like having her around.
It's a big dorm room because
it's like I'm realizing I find so much of my purpose in being a mom that, you know, not having those responsibilities, I'm kind of feeling a little bit, maybe that's where that empty nest thing's, because we're over-parenting.
It can be, but I think part of that's just very natural, and our children begin to leave. There is going to be some sadness because we miss their presence. My daughter is gone. She's the oldest. So now I'm in a house of 5 boys and my husband. You know, it is testosterone city, and I'm the only female there. Well, I really miss my daughter, and it's not empty nest. It's because I miss her because I love her, and her presence is now gone.
Let's look at another myth you have, which is that good parenting leads, so if you're a great parent, it'll lead to happy children. Is there always a one-to-one?
Well, I think we think so.
We'd like to think so, wouldn't we?
We'd like to think so.
Especially when you end up with a child that kind of goes a prodigal way in their teen years, and you feel like, but I did all the right things. And then this child still had this bent to go this direction, and then you blame yourself.
Right, and that's one of the biggest things that I see is I meet with parents all over the country, and in the course of writing this book, there's just loads of guilt that parents are carrying, even as their children are adults and have been out of the house for 10, 15 years. I think we've bought into the idea that child raising is a formula. That if I do A, B, and C, my child will become X, Y, and Z. That there's a formula in place, and that all we have to do is make sure that we are checking everything off the list. You know, that our children are you know, going to church every Sunday, they go to youth group, their room is clean, they don't have it, we have all these things.
Yeah.
You know, we have a long list of the do's and don'ts.
As long as they're saying their please and thank you and yes, ma'am and no ma'am.
Yeah, right. And we think, okay, if I do my part and check off all these things on the list, then the outcome is guaranteed. The outcome is sure. My child is going to be happy. My child is going to be successful. We're really not given those kind of promises. We're really not given those promises, and we're really not given a formula. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's wonderful that we're not given a formula to raise our children. Because what happens when we do, and there are books out there are books that are bestsellers, globally, that sell in the millions, that sort of walk you through and give you sort of this formula. Here's how to raise, cookie cutter, absolutely,
kids.
one size fits all parenting. And that makes things easier. But what happens is we transfer our trust to the formula.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, and we're trusting in ourselves and our ability to carry out the formula.
Yeah.
And you look at them as how well they're doing in that formulaic condition instead of looking at where are they in life.
Right, right. And recognize that parenting is this incredibly complex, wonderful, dynamic adventure. And we cannot shrink it down, to this one. We can't shrink wrap it,
Let's hit another one of the myths. You will always feel love for your child.
Yes, that's one of my favorite. In fact, that was the very first one that I attacked because that was the one that I was feeling so oppressed by. Before we have children, we think that we're going to be a good parent because we're always going to love our child. We're always going to feel love for our child. Then you have children, and you realize that, for one thing, love is not just one feeling. Love is a whole host of feelings. If you truly love your child, you are going to be frustrated with them when they do something hurtful. You are going to be, you are going to have a whole range of emotions. And the key question is not, am I feeling love for my child, but am I being loving toward my child? And that's what we have to do, is shift our focus from how we're feeling about parenting to what we're actually doing as a parent.
Are we expressing love? And sometimes that love is tough love.
That's right. That's right. Love is not just those warm, gooey feelings. Right? Love is sometimes really disciplining when we need to discipline, and sometimes it's it's putting up boundaries around our kids that they may not be happy with us about. But that's a form of love, a very important form of love.
And once we debunk some of these myths, and you've got 8 solid ones in here that you talk about, once we sort of debunk some of those myths, I think it sort of liberates us and frees us to be a much healthier parent.
Oh, it absolutely does. It frees us and it frees our children.
Yes, that's a good point.
And I know the difference because for 15 years I labored under these myths, trying to live up to them, and I was doing a really bad job of it. Ask my children, and
they'll tell you.
And they'll tell you the truth.
Well, 6 children from 20 to 6 years old, and so God bless you, woman.
Thank you. I need it. I always need it.
And it's more of an adventure for your children, too. They're on an adventure just like we are.
Oh, absolutely. They are.
Parenting is your highest calling, and 8 other myths that trap us in worry and guilt.
You know, I always remind my kids, I've never done this before, so give me a break.
Yeah.
I'm learning just like you. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today,
Thanks
Leslie.
for having me.
Great input, great advice.
Thank you.